When it comes to everything fantasy football, you have to ask one question. Don't you deserve a fighting chance? And now, welcome to Fighting Chance Live with your hosts, Kevin Tompkins and Scott Fishbowl 9 winner, Gary Haddow.
Welcome to Fighting Chance Live. Gary, I don't know how to start these damn things. Like, I feel like such a yutz. I'm like Ricky Bobby. Like, what do I do with my hands?
Dude, you crush it every time. Give yourself some more credit. It's always amazing.
Yeah, it's to be seen. But if you're watching on Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for stopping in here and watching us here. And we got a great guest. You've seen him on the Fantasy Football Faceoff. Michael Hauff. Michael, how you doing, man?
Good. Happy to be here. How's it going, guys?
It is going fantastic. And my lovely co-host, right over here. I got to get my directions going. Gary Haddow. He's 2 weeks into a haircut. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I still got to get the trim at the front, but that's just, we kind of bypassed that just to make sure we got everything else. But I'm good. It's Wednesday night. I'm happy to kind of jump into stuff, talk some QBs, and do some positional breakdowns. It's nice to finally meet Michael. I've definitely heard you on various pods and stuff, so it's always funny having people on and you recognize the voice, and now you get to see the face and whatnot. So
right,
I'm so happy you came on, and thank you so much.
And I'm in the presence of true royalty because you're an SFB 9 winner, so there's also that for me.
Legend precedes me.
Right. Fair enough.
Well, we're here going to talk some quarterback, some redraft. We're going away from we talked some dynasty for a few weeks. We're going to start hitting the redraft hammer pretty hard here. So before we do that, before we dive into the quarterbacks, let's talk about Michael. Where can we find your work? Tell us, Twitter handle, everything you're doing right now.
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter at the FF Realist. We do the FF Faceoff Podcast, me and Anthony Cervino. I'd be nowhere without him. He'd be nowhere without me, probably. So there you go. But yeah, no, we put on a good show 2-3 times a week whenever we can. And so that's basically the bulk of my work right now, along with the podathon, of course, the mental health podathon that we are putting together literally day and night, team meetings, texting nonstop, just ideas. So yeah, it's coming together.
Yeah, that's awesome. We've seen a lot of that on Twitter, and let's dive into more of that, the mental health podathon. So I believe it was July 11th that's going to be going down.
July 11th, we're going to be doing it for 16 hours. Start around 7 a.m. I think, and around 11 p.m. My whole thing is I've dealt with anxiety in the past. I still do from time to time, and there was times last year even it was to the point where I couldn't even go. I could barely go to work. So you go through that stuff, and then I see a lot of people on Twitter in our fantasy community. They kind of all, in some way or another, they all mention it here and there. Everybody's dealing with something. So between seeing that and then reading about Hayden's story, it just kind of came to me like, you know what? Why don't we get the fantasy community together? Because it's a darn good group of people. So, and that's one thing you notice. If anybody ever needs something, the fantasy community is all over it. So I thought, let's put this together. So contacted Hayden's people. Hayden was into it, and off we go. So 16 hours, and Anthony's in charge of production, which is not easy. I'm going to be in charge of doing time slots, which is going to be even worse. And so it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's just weird. Like it's weird but cool because you get a lot of people that reach out to you and say, you know what, this affects me a lot too. So I want to be involved. It's not just people like, oh, I want to be involved because it's a fantasy football thing I want to be on. It's people are concerned. So it's good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with a lot of those things coming to light more and being more public, a lot of people, are telling their story and not keeping that stuff in anymore. And, we really want to group together and just let people know that they're not alone. I suffer through anxiety, you have peaks and valleys. It really gets you almost when you least suspect it, and it can really crush you.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who are going through the same thing, even when you don't think you think you're on an island.
That's exactly the thing. I mean, even a guy like Mike Wright of the fantasy footballers, he had tweeted something about how he struggles sometimes with any kind of anxiety or anything. And that's a guy, he's such a free bird, you would never suspect it, just happiest guy, most popular guy in the room, and you never know, So yeah, I think it speaks volumes, and that's the thing. People who might not want to talk about it yet, maybe after this, and maybe they'll be open to it because maybe they'll see, you know what, there's a lot of people in the same boat.
Yep, definitely. Opens up doors, definitely, to at least get the discussion going. If we can do that, then people are going to be a lot better for it. So that's I'll definitely be tuning in and donating. I can't wait to watch it. I watch you and Anthony.
We'll see if we can find you boys some room. We'll be in touch. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be in touch if you guys. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be like a musical chairs with the time slots. But yeah, we'll work something out.
We're always around. I got a 2-year-old, so I'm up from like 6 a.m. anyway.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make room. It's me and her with no kids at least yet. So we're good on that front. But so going on from that, let's talk about some quarterbacks. So I've got my rankings. Michael's got his. Gary's got his. So let's go through. I'm going to go through at least my top 5 right now, and then we can kind of dive into that and kind of go through sections. So for redraft, it's pretty consensus, I would say. I've got Patrick Mahomes number 1, Lamar number 2. You're not going to see a lot of deviation between 1 and 2. My QB3 is Dak Prescott. Kyler Murray is my QB4, and I've got Russell Wilson as my QB5.
Pretty much the same here. I mean, the only deviation for me is that I'm gonna sub Wilson and put in Breeze, and Michael looks like he has Russell at 4, but he has Kyler at 5. So I'm probably the odd one out, putting Breeze up in there. But I mean, I have Wilson at 6. You're kind of splitting hairs here. I trust somebody that I believe is going to throw a hell of a lot more than Wilson probably will, just given the makeup of the team. But man, they're both just badass quarterbacks. Kyler's definitely the one that's probably the most fun to kind of talk about and see where he's going, considering how high he is. But, we'll kind of get into that as we jump through everything. Yeah,
for sure. So going into Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. So we've got them, all three of us had them 1 and 2. Now, Mahomes over Jackson. Now, Michael, would you say that would be due to maybe a perceived higher floor with Holmes versus the regression that you'll probably see with Jackson this year? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we're gonna see some regression from Lamar Jackson, and that's just fine. That's a product of the game. It's a product of bursting out of the gates in the way in which he did. It's funny. It's like last year you start to see, this kid's gonna be the next Pat Mahomes. Now today we see things about Taysom Hill. He's the next Lamar Jackson. It's a product of the business. But yeah, I think we'll see some regression. I think the rushing numbers will still be there for Lamar. I just think when I put together my rankings, I also like to look at consistency. I'm big on consistency. I do up to like 3-year charts of just how consistent the guy is. And to me, while I just feel like we're going to be able to trust Pat Mahomes to give us more consistent football. If he's not, remember, he dealt with that injury last year. He had that injury on Thursday night against the Broncos. If he doesn't have that, maybe he's a lot more consistent than Lamar Jackson. So, again, you talked about it, splitting hairs, competition at the position. You can't go wrong up here at the top if you're willing to invest that draft capital. But yeah, I think Mahomes will be the guy.
Yeah,
is that the type of thing that you are willing to invest the draft capital in one of these two guys?
See, that's the thing. I can't judge folks that want to go ahead and do that. Yeah. Just me, the way I draft, everybody's got their own theme. I'm sure you guys have your theme. I mean, Anthony on the FF Faceoff, he won't draft a tight end until he's almost 3/4 of the way through the draft. It's just how people operate. As sexy as they are, I just can't take a quarterback that early. I can't judge someone for doing it, but I won't do it.
It's definitely interesting. I feel like, sorry, Kevin, I cut you off again, but they're the only two that I can even consider taking early. I have no interest in doing it personally, but I feel like it's one of those two, or for me, then you just wait and wait. And almost anybody, even from Dak's kind of interesting, but
Yep.
Kyler, like those guys in the middle there, like I just have no interest in, unless a team just happened to fall perfectly where I'm getting them in a screaming value. But I mean, I think that can be said for any particular player in the draft, regardless of position.
Yeah, and it kind of gets interesting when you get past the 1-2, because we're high on Dak, but you know what? Maybe somebody's not. Maybe somebody's got him ranked at like 6 or 7 for some odd reason, and they, they'll say, oh, well, I'll wait. You could always get something like that to fall to you. So
yeah, absolutely. Those guys, you might see Dak and Kyler kind of slip into that maybe end of the 4th, just because people want to just hammer running back, hammer wide receiver, and maybe you run into a value there. Now, I'm not going to touch quarterbacks, maybe until the 5th or 6th at the absolute earliest if someone falls. Like I think I took Lamar Jackson at the 2-3 turn in a best ball. That's about as aggressive as I'll get with a quarterback, but in redraft and just like a standard 12 team, I'm not gonna I'm gonna wait for value later and just hammer running backs, wide receivers.
And I do, like, my main thing with Lamar in particular is that I'm never betting on breaking records.
Right.
When Kelsey did it, and I'm probably the biggest Kelsey fan of this podcast, if not the second behind Michael. And like Kelsey, when Kelsey did it, when Kittle did it, when whoever's broken records, I'm probably not betting on that player to do it again. And then someone else can spend the money on it, because they'll probably be awesome and they'll get pretty close to that draft capital, but that extra cost that's going to be built into it just because they did what they did is not worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And then one thing you can say too, you look at Lamar, they really didn't add anybody skill position wise other than maybe Devin Duvernay, and then they lost Hayden Hurst too. So you've got the same pass catchers there. You've got Dobbins there, at running back, but he's going to go into year 2 with basically the same pass catchers outside of Hurst. So maybe the tape is out on Lamar year 2. That's got to be baked into that too. So if you're looking, at Lamar, it just value wise, let someone else take them and let them roll the dice.
Right. I think the rushing numbers are always going to be there. I think that's just a product of him being that type of athlete. Yeah. But I think that we can see a regression in the passing numbers for exactly what you said. Everybody catches up to somebody at some point. It's just how it happens. So I think we'll see that, but I don't think it'll be enough to take away the rushing. So and no quarterback has ever rushed for 800+ yards in back-to-back seasons. So I mean, all right. Maybe we'll see a record broken. I was going to say maybe we will. Yeah,
but it wouldn't surprise me, right?
No, with Lamar Jackson, it would not surprise me at all. Absolutely. So let's go into Dak Prescott, who just got a new shiny toy in CeeDee Lamb, and Mike McCarthy, who we know what he did with Green Bay. Led 11 of his 13 seasons. He had a top 10 passing offense there. So as far as Dak Prescott goes, he was QB2 last season. And people want to, say what you want. People wanting to put him at QB3 and raising a stink about it. And I really don't get that, because clearly you're not paying attention. He was quarterback 2 last season. Yeah. So and as Gary said, the value there, that's kind of baked in. You could see people reach for him, but I do think maybe those two guys kind of fall a little bit based on hammering home on running backs and wide receivers. But do you think that last year was his ceiling, or, you could only do so much after what he did last year, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's a ceiling, but I think that we talked about Jackson just now and saying how we think that there'll be a regression, because that ceiling was just, it broke records. So I think that yes, maybe that's a ceiling for Dak Prescott, but I don't think that means that he can't get back to that. I don't think that means that we can't see it happen again. And, there's also the rushing floor. I mean, last year he only had 3 touchdowns, but in years prior to that, I mean, he was scoring 8 rushing touchdowns at a clip.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike McCarthy, I know, yes, he was coaching with Aaron Rodgers, but that's a team. You look at the years he was there in Green Bay, they were leading the league in passing left and right. They were up in that top 10. That was a regular thing. It was a routine thing. So I love Dak Prescott headed into this year. And that's, if anybody wants to rank him lower, and if I could get him in a draft because of that, thank you very much. Yeah.
So he is somebody that you're actually thinking that you'll maybe try and actually target to get?
That's a guy, just because to me, I'm so high on him headed into this year that I may try and finagle my way into that. I mean, he was a QB1 in 68.8% of his games last year. And some people think, 68%, that's barely passing, which I know all too well from my school days, but that's a good number when you're talking about QB1 performances. So yeah, I'm very high on Dak Prescott.
I'm just curious to see what McCarthy, there's a lot of talk that he, studied a lot of analytics and
right.
Was it with PFF that he went and studied with? I think I'm saying that right. And so we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic that McCarthy's not just going to be Jason Garrett 2.0. But admittedly, like Dak did this with Jason Garrett. So if he gets any sort of an upgrade, he gets an upgrade, and they get all their returning parts. Even if CeeDee Lamb takes a bit to acclimate to the NFL or whatnot, given what's going to be happening with OTAs, you still have Michael Gallup there.
Right.
And Blake Jarwin seems to be a little bit of an ascendant talent. So there's a lot there. I couldn't even tell you who, like, anyone else they would even need to pass to. There's the 5 of them, and that's kind of it.
I mean, they even had Randall Cobb last year. I mean, you have to forgive me, I don't have the number right in front of me, but he had over 800 yards receiving. Yeah. If CeeDee Lamb catches on, could you imagine 3 wide receivers, 1,000 yards? I mean, it could happen. It could definitely happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
It would be. So let's go to QB4 here, at least for me. Kyler Murray. So he had some aches and pains in his rookie year, but he still ended up as QB7. Now he's getting DeAndre Hopkins. He's got a full year of Kenyon Drake behind him. So would he be the last of the reasonable overall QB1 candidates for this year? I would say Dak would certainly be one of them with Mahomes and Lamar, but is that kind of the tier break for you, Michael?
Yeah, to me, when I'm drafting, again, I'm not touching those top 2 just because I'm not going to reach that high. But yeah, I guess that's the tier break. I mean, and I'd be willing to sit in there for Dak and take my shot if I see the right time. But Kyler, as much as I like him, as sexy as he is, there is a tier cutoff there. There's a lot of optimism around Kyler because he has DeAndre Hopkins, but there should be a lot of optimism because it's a Cliff Kingsbury offense, and it's going to be his second year in the pros. So it's like, I hate to rank him there and then have folks think, oh, well, that's just because it's Hopkins. Because no, I actually have Hopkins slipping in my rankings. So, but yeah, that would be a tier break for me, but I do love Kyler, and I have a lot of issues with Kyler and Russell Wilson back and forth. I feel like that's something. I feel like my top 3 solidified. That's something I'm going to be back and forth on throughout the summer.
Yeah,
I feel like people forget the fact that they drafted 3 wide receivers last season. It's not just that they have Hopkins, they have Christian Kirk, they have perennial Larry Fitzgerald, who's becoming the Frank Gore wide receivers, but they have also Andy Isabella, Keyshawn Johnson, Butler, and Hakeem Butler. So, I mean, the sky's the limit for what he could do, especially with his legs. And there's just, I don't know how you defend this team, especially when they're going 4 wide with Drake in the back and with Kyler's running ability. It's going to be pretty awesome. And they even beefed up their offensive line.
Right. Yeah. It's not going to be fun being a fan of the NFC West team.
But on the flip side, it's going to be they're by far the best division. I feel like I have to say this for years and on end, but now definitely the last 2 years, they've been just fantastic.
Yeah.
So.
And by the way, I'm just one thing, because I keep saying this, they talk about the new league, with, they're going to have the extra playoff team. I think the NFC West, I think you could see 3 teams come out.
Yep. Completely agree.
And I think the Rams would be the odd one out.
Yep. I 100% agree.
So
fuck Jared Goff.
Amen.
Amen. Yes.
So we'll stay in the NFC West here, and we'll go to the other team, Seattle, who, we got Russell Wilson. Right now, with all the talk about, obviously the big two, then you got Prescott, Murray, other guys that are talked about. Russell Wilson's kind of lying in the weeds a little bit in terms of fantasy. So as far as top, 6, 7 quarterbacks, I'll go to Gary first on this. Do you think Russell Wilson represents the best value among that top 6?
So ever since the show dog was created, I've been thinking about it. I was just like, dude, it's best value among the top 6, yes. But I was thinking it was best value to get there. And I was just like, no, like he doesn't throw that much. He's really saved on kind of the halfway through the third quarter to the end of the fourth quarter is when he turns it on and they actually let him loose. And it's the most ridiculous thing because he's really one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, as much as it pains me to say. But then I thought about it more and I was like, they're trying to sign Devonta Freeman. They're trying to sign Carlos Hyde. Like Rashad Penny's not going to be there. They have DJ Dallas, who's a 4th round running back. Who knows what he's going to be. And they have Chris Carson, who's already coming off of his own injury. What are they going to do? They brought in Philip Dorsett, which isn't anything crazy, but they also brought in Greg Olsen, nothing crazy. But those are 2 assets as your 3rd and 4th that make a huge addition to be able to maybe take some of the pressure off of DK, take some of the pressure off of Lockett. All of a sudden, I'm like, I could see Russell Wilson having one of his best years just for the sole fact that they want to run and they're not going to be able to. Outside of Chris Carson, who it's a separate conversation. I mean, I just think he's a screaming steal also. So
right. Yes, he is. Yeah. As long as he doesn't fumble. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They gave him enough leeway last year, so I think he could fumble somewhat because what the hell else are they going to do unless they give Devonta an extra couple million to bring him in?
That's it.
Yeah.
But when you look at Wilson, though, I'm looking at the guys around him, and I'm looking at like guys like Deshaun Watson who could get drafted ahead of him, Josh Allen get drafted ahead. You could see Russell Wilson dive into maybe the 9th or 10th round in some leagues. He's just not really the super sexy name anymore. So that's, to me, that's the screaming value is getting someone like that when you've got your roster pretty much, your main 8 or 9 guys. And then you can take a guy like Russell Wilson, who can be a top 3 quarterback in redraft.
Right. Yeah. And then, I mean, you're all the better for it. I mean, if somebody wants to take a risk on Josh Allen, because he's a sexy name, because he's a young kid, go ahead. If you want to go cougar hunting, go ahead, and I'll go take Russell Wilson. That's fine. I mean, Wilson last year too, by the way, I mean, 2017, he was a QB1 in 68.8% of his games. 2018, 62.5. Last year, he dropped to 43.8. So maybe that's some of it too. Maybe folks got an eye that, hey, he wasn't so consistent this year and he's got no weapons around him. But really, can you ever recall a season in which Russell Wilson was absolutely loaded with talent it just doesn't happen. He always has a very solid running back, with Marshawn Lynch. Now it's Chris Carson. Mm-hmm. But he makes do with what he has. And, he doesn't rush as much as he did earlier in his career, but it's still there. And he could still, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football at creating a play after it breaks down. And that translates to fantasy when you could tuck the ball and run. So,
yeah, this is probably the most talent that he's had around him.
Yeah.
You could definitely make that case now.
Yeah.
If you ever get into a situation where you really want Russell Wilson, if let's just say he gets sniped, just wait until week 5, trade for him. Usually his value's in the dumps. And then week 8, all of a sudden he turns it on. And it's like, if he could do from week 8 to week 16 or whatever into the playoffs that he does, I mean, clear cut, probably wide receiver or quarterback 1, 2, at worst 3. But if he doesn't do that, then all of a sudden you draft him and you wonder what to do with him. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, I've drafted him a few times in the past couple of years, and I always felt like I had to have a backup just for those first couple of games, just to see which guy am I getting, how heavy are they going to be on the run. So it's just something to take into consideration. But if you're not getting him until the 9th round, then who cares? Like, you've already stacked out your roster, so you just then take somebody at the very back end, and as we'll get to eventually in either this pod or another one. I mean, QB 24 is somebody that's probably a legitimate backup.
And I'm taking a look at that here. I mean, Gary, just to support your point, I mean, last year again was kind of a fluky year because he only had 7 years as a QB, 7 games as a QB1. But 2018, he only had 2 games as a QB1 prior to week 8. He finished the year with 10 games. So he took off after week 8. 2017, he had 3 games as a QB1, finished with 11 after week 8. So yeah, it's to go into your point. Yes, invest in Russell Wilson second half of the year.
Yep, totally.
So, kudos.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. If you can, in that 4-week stretch where he decides to throw for 150 and a touchdown. Yeah. Get him in that gap, find that gap. So I know that Gary has Drew Brees 5th. We can get into him
later.
Yeah, we'll get into him later. I'm looking at right now, I'll say do 6 through 9 right now. So at 6, I've got Deshaun Watson. At 7, I've got Josh Allen. 8, Matt Ryan. 9, Tom Brady. Gary has at 6 the aforementioned Russell Wilson. 7, Matt Ryan. 8, Ben Roethlisberger. And then 9, Matthew Stafford. And then... Yeah, absolutely. The graybeards. And then number 6 for Michael, we got, let's see, Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, Tom Brady, and then, Watson, Wentz, Brady, and then Breeze at 9. So let's go into, let's just hit that big 4 there. Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Ben Roethlisberger. We can kind of lump them all together. They're very limited in their rushing. They are what they are. They're got great offenses around them. Is this the kind of tier that you're kind of targeting in drafts? If you're filling out your roster, best case scenario, you can just snag a Matt Ryan, snag a Tom Brady, maybe in the 11th or 12th. I'll pass that off to Michael.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about unsexy names with as far as Russell Wilson at this point. This is a new tier of unsexy names. A Matt Ryan. I'll gladly take a shot at Matt Ryan in one of these drafts. I mean, last year he was pretty consistent too. I know he dealt with that one injury, and I think he actually missed a game at that point, which was a rarity for him. But yeah, and Ben Roethlisberger is a curious one, Gary, and I would like to not to steer the show here, but I'm intrigued because Anthony on the FF Faceoff, he got me into this idea that Ben Roethlisberger could be in a position now, strong defense. Maybe he doesn't need to throw as much anymore. Maybe it ends up almost like a Peyton Manning sort of in that last year, except Ben Roethlisberger will be better than that this year, I think, But that's that sort of idea where rely more on the running game, rely on a strong defense, maybe not throw the ball as much. Do you have any thoughts on that, or do you think he's going to come in sky high throwing the ball? Because I'll say this: he's not in my top 12. I've got him at 13.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable. I mean, I bank a lot on post-injury players. I've kind of had this weird thing, and I've always done it. My team name in every single league is injured reserve. Like I've always had that because I bank on players the year after their injuries, and they have great wide receivers. Like Antonio's no longer there, but they have Deontay, they have James Washington if you like him, they have Chase Claypool. They also brought in Ebron. They still have McDonald, whatever you want to say. James Conner and their running game. What running game? They have James Conner for now. James Conner is also a great pass catching back. They have Jalen Samuel, great pass catching back. Then they have McFarland, who we're just trying to figure out what he's going to be in the offense. And they have Benny Snell, who's between the tackles, and that's kind of it. Their defense is awesome. I'm firmly of the belief that they're going to do everything they can to get it to the playoffs. And they're 100% a playoff team. And then it's a question of how far are they going to go. And I think that Roth doesn't really strike me as the guy that's like, hey, bring someone in and let me train him. He's like, this is my fucking team. Mm-hmm. I was out last season. Do you guys see what happened? You didn't even make the playoffs, but you're really close because that defense is awesome. I'm going to come in. I'm going to show you guys how far we're going to get. Honestly, I just think that Yeah, it was AB, and then there was AB plus Juju, and I think now they have Juju plus all these other component parts that will make him just get back to where he was. Wasn't he QB3, I think, in 2018? He might have been QB5.
Yeah, he was up there. I know that.
Yeah. I don't know why he wouldn't get back up there. Again, I understand Antonio Brown is the reason for the question mark, but they have these other pieces. He's really good at what he does. I don't think that the Tommy John surgery is going to limit him as much as he did. This isn't even buying into the hype with the fact that, like, understand why he looked so crazy Grizzly Adams the entire offseason, that he was waiting until he throw a pass to one of his receivers.
Yeah.
I just think it's just Ben is back and he's going to do his thing. I'm not even a big Steelers fan, but they are a good organization. They know what they're doing. They didn't bring anyone in, and they had the two worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year. They could have signed probably Jameis. They could probably sign Cam if they want to. They believe that they will have at least 1 year. I believe 2 to 3 years with Ben.
Yeah, and by the way, just to backtrack, he was the number 3 quarterback in 2018.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, he had, I think, 2 500+ games. Like, it's not as if he's lost a step. Again, it all comes down to AB, and do you think that that's going to be replicable without AB? But I think that Eric Ebron alone, dude, he's a screaming value at tight end. I don't care what anyone says. He has the 10 to 14 touchdown upside, like he had that 1 year with the Colts.
With the Colts, yeah.
And so I'm just gonna believe that the Steelers know what they're doing. They do play in a tough division because the Browns have gotten a better defense. I think the Bengals have actually gotten a better defense. I think obviously the Ravens are probably dark horse, one of the best defenses in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
But they all have really good offenses. I don't care what anyone says about the Bengals. They have they have an awesome offense, or what I expect to be one. Everyone's just going to be the whole division is going to be really fun games. I think we're done with 6 and 10 games.
Yeah.
Field goals win the game and all that stuff. So I feel like I just went on a really long Steelers rant, but the Majuk sisters, or the Majuk ladies would be proud of me. I can't.
Some think they're sisters.
Yes.
Fuck, dude. I'm just going to pretend I'm Ross Tucker. But yeah, so I'm all about him. It's probably personal bias. I delay on where this is a redraft show, but in dynasty leagues, I like to delay and try and get some of these older guys. I think that you get 2 to 3 years out of them, and then you just figure out the rest from there. When it comes to redraft, these guys are going so late. I'm going to fill out everything else I can.
Sure.
And the one last thing, I just spoke for so long. There was last year, there was a rule that I heard, I think Mike Wright say on the Fantasy Footballers, and it was a Russell Wilson rule. You don't take a quarterback until Russell Wilson goes off the board. My rule is you don't take a quarterback until one of these 4 goes off the board, and then you try and get 1 or 2 of them.
Fair enough. No, that's
Sorry,
it, man.
guys.
I asked the
Passionate
question
about this.
I think it just really speaks to the depth of quarterback just in general, because you can get a starter 1 through 20, and probably deeper into that. I mean, if you really go outside of 20, like guys like Kirk Cousins, I mean, it's just crazy the depth. So that's late round quarterback. But we'll go to Josh Allen, and that's somebody that Gary needs to be sold on. Because Gary is not.
I just don't get it.
What don't you get?
I don't get why we would have him above any of these guys. Brady has a downside, but the other
right.
And Roethlisberger we talked about his possible downside, but like Breeze and Ryan don't have downsides. Why would you go with them?
But how low is low? How low are we talking here, Gary? Like,
he's probably like, I don't have him in my top 12.
Okay.
But that's just. But he's probably the 13. Okay. I think that a lot is made out of his rushing that I don't think is there as significantly as people say it is. He's not as involved in the end zone when it comes to rushing as people say he is. I think he had 5 rushing touchdowns. Most years Dak has more than that, and we don't say that Dak is a rushing quarterback. I think that is issues with his accuracy. Yeah, they brought in Diggs. Like, that's fantastic. I think that the smartest thing that the organization did was draft Fromm in the 5th round or whatever it was, because they're not even sure. And again, this is redraft. I'm so dynasty focused right now, but they don't have any idea what they're going to do with Allen. What's to say he doesn't like shit the bed and all of a sudden come week 8, they're like, well, let's see what else we have in the future because we know we're not taking him. You said that you don't like Roethlisberger because you think that the Steelers are going to be a game management team.
Yeah.
Dude, more game management team than the Bills, who have a better defense probably and have Zach Moss and Singletary. I don't know. Makes me nervous.
So last year, Josh Allen had 9 rushing touchdowns, and you know who? Okay. You know who he had more rushing touchdowns than? Nick Chubb.
Yep.
Marlon Mack, Kenyon Drake, Raheem Mostert, Melvin Gordon.
Who are his running backs?
The year prior.
Who are his running backs? Frank Gore and Devin Singletary, who was a rookie.
That's fine, but you know what? They went out and signed Stephon Diggs, and that's going to put John Brown into probably a more reasonable role as an outside, their wide receiver 2. Put Cole Beasley in the slot. You've got Dawson Knox still at tight end. He's ascending. He's had moments last year. I think you're not going to trade for Stephon Diggs. You're not going to trade the capital they did for Stephon Diggs if you're not going to make a more diligent attempt to pass more. Now, do I still think they're going to be a run-heavy team? Absolutely. I mean, they're going to do that with Singletary. They're going to do that with Zach Moss, and they put a lot of assets into their offensive line. I just think that Josh Allen, for the warts that he has, the dude makes plays, and maybe that's stuff that you don't see on the stat sheet. But the dude is going to make something out of nothing. The Buffalo fans love him for that. Now, I was definitely the most aggressive in ranking Josh Allen at 7. It's maybe that's just a little bias in me, but I'll go. I don't think that Jake Fromm is going to be anything this year, or I just can't see a scenario where Josh Allen is going to be has minimized job security. I can't see that in 2020.
Not in 2020, no, but I think that drafting Fromm was a definite reaction, in my opinion, to the deer in the headlights second half that he had in that wild card playoff game. Yep. He played great. He played well in the first half. The second half, he came out, and I don't know what happened during halftime there, but something at a naked gun when he knocks out the umpire. But he came out like a deer in headlights, and I think that drafting Fromm was, listen, we're building a winner, and if we find out this kid can't do it, we need an exit plan, and we need an exit plan quick. We can't set the franchise back. But that being said, and listen, Josh Allen has been he hasn't been accurate yet. This isn't something that just came up. But the thing is that even with him being inaccurate, so you can go ahead and tell me Stephon Diggs is there, and this guy's there, and that guy is going to do this role. That's great. But if he's not accurate, we can only talk about that so much. I think the key is, again, it's the rushing floor. It's a sneaky rushing floor. Like Gary, you had said, you didn't think he had that many rushing touchdowns, but it's he had 9 rushing touchdowns. He had 9 last year. He had 8 the year before. So it's sneaky, and it goes to the point what you were saying with Dak Prescott. That was very sneaky too. His first 3 years in the NFL. Pretty sure he had 8 touchdowns each of those first 3 years. So sneaky rushing numbers, it wins. It helps counter bad passing. So now if he for whatever reason, let's just say folks who want to buy into Zach Moss, I'm not ready to buy into him just yet. I get it, but I'm not ready to buy in year 1. But let's just say they go off. Moss and Singletary. They're, thunder and lightning, ground and pound. And let's say that means Allen only gets like 3-4 rushing touchdowns. That's going to be a problem. That's when he hurts somebody who decides to draft him early. That's when he burns them bad. So he needs to get those rushing scores, in my opinion.
And so I obviously, let's just say I have him at 13. Michael has him at 10. And Kevin has him at 7. What I was going to say, and I just looked at your rankings, was to me, the fact that Allen is going in front of Brady and Breeze in a 2020 redraft is crazy to me. Like, those two have just studs around them, and they are studs. They are goats. They are top of the best ever. And yet we're taking a guy that's not a great quarterback who's a playmaker. Like, no, I'm the fact that Allen is probably going around Carson Wentz, and then Brady, Breeze, Ryan are going after it. It's criminal to me. The people that are going to do that, the only way that they think he's a success is if he becomes a top 3 quarterback. And I only think he becomes a top 3, top 5 quarterback if he is able to sustain all the stuff he's always done, but he's just gotten a little bit less good. But then he has added more pieces to try and take the pressure off of him because they have such a damn good defense.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that we haven't sold you on Josh Allen at all.
The 9 touchdowns helps, but then the reality of, okay, he got 9. Like, what if he regresses to the mean and actually gets way less? I mean, that just screams to me negative regression.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take you on the flip side here. So you're talking about how you can have Josh Allen ahead of Brady and Breeze. Now, who's to say that either of those arms? Who's to say they don't fall off this year? Same with a guy like Rivers too. I mean, he's not nowhere near drafted as high, but that you have that kind of cliff that those two guys can, with all the weapons in the world, it doesn't matter. We saw Peyton Manning in 2015; his arm pretty much fell off. Who's to say that couldn't happen? I mean, Brady's what, 43?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There is a cliff there, and we could all of a sudden get to a year where it comes out of nowhere, and those guys can't throw anymore. But Gary might agree with this. I might be putting words in his mouth, but I would rather rely on the body of work of what they've done up until this point, rather than Josh Allen and what he's done up to this point. That's why I end up having Josh Allen just behind those guys.
I'll believe in you until you prove me wrong. Not I'm going to believe in you and you have to prove me right. That's just not how I play fantasy when it comes to the quarterback position that's so deep. Because if I'm wrong about Brady and Breeze, I'm just going to pivot to my boy Jimmy or whoever it is that's potentially on the waiver wire despite being a screaming value. That's not a problem. And I have Breeze super high. I have Brady at 11. And I'm very comfortable with that. I debated on if I wanted to do Allen or Jones at 12, and I just thought Jones has more of an upside. I mean, he's shown Jones is Allen less of a runner and a better passer with awesome weapons.
I've got him in 2 dynasty leagues so far, and I feel fantastic about him.
Yep. Yeah. I don't care about the interceptions. They're going to come, but he's going to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns many, many games, and he's going to have 3 awesome wide receivers, and he has Barkley, so we're good. And a terrible defense.
Right. Yep. And those are guys too. I've got Daniel Jones at 12. Gary's got him at 12, and I don't think he's on your top 12. Michael,
he's not, but I'm telling you, he's gonna go in there. I'm catching the fever more and more with each day that passes by. I think he's at 14 for me, but he's we talk about guys, we all have our rankings and we say, well, this guy can move up. This guy's not going to move. This guy's going to go back. That's a guy for me. Daniel Jones, he can only go up, and he probably will. I'm excited about him and this year with the Giants, which is weird to say. Maybe they knew what they were doing over there.
Exactly. So in that same vein, so guys that are going to maybe make that jump up into that top 12, Gary, I'll start with you. Who are guys that you like outside of the top 12 that you have that you like to be kind of mainstays in that top 12 going forward? Maybe younger guys, maybe guys that we haven't seen a lot out of.
I'm a homer for saying it, but I don't really care. It's Jimmy G. He's not the only one, but he's someone that I really like. He's growing and developing. I mean, he was out of the league for a season. That meant he wasn't spending the time getting in with Shanahan's offense, which we know is prolific. He had 7 games. In those 7 games in 2018, 2017, he was legit. He was awesome. And so then the ACL, and then he comes back. And so Kevin and I were talking about this pre-podcast. The downside with Jimmy is that you're either getting 3 or 4 touchdowns or you're getting 0 or 1. You don't get a lot of 2 touchdown games. But they just got a first-round wide receiver in Ayuk. They already have Debo, who, I mean, fantasy aside, is one of the most, if not the most exciting wide receivers in the NFL for everything that he can do when he has the ball in his hand. He has George Kittle. They didn't have Hurd. They didn't have Trent Taylor. They now have Jet McKinnon coming back. I mean, there's so much stuff that's just going on that I think he has a higher floor than most people give credit. And I think that offense is one of those that in the least, I don't even know, it's not the right thing to say, but they can compete at the top level with the Chiefs and the Ravens on offense. They just do it in the entirely different way than they do.
Yeah.
And so no matter what, if you have a chance and you have a roster spot and you're not sure who to take, just take Jimmy. Fine. Week 4, like, you cut him and you have him for someone else. But I'm telling you, you'll know pretty quickly what they're going to be doing. And I just think he is primed for it. And there's various metrics that I've seen where he was top 5 last year, despite what everyone shits on him. He was top 5. Some very important metrics. And the easiest way to have an awesome quarterback is Yak. Just have wide receivers that are schemed up and are awesome running after the catch. And he is going to do that. So you could have a terrible, if Josh Allen had Shanahan and had these other guys, like, cool. He would either run or he would dump off to these guys and they would have 20, 30 yard catches or runs after the catch. Done.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's a better passer than all these people. My words are terrible tonight. Michael, you're just confusing me.
I apologize. Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, I'm a Niner guy too. I love Jimmy Garoppolo to death. I want to agree with you. Yeah, I don't know if I can, but and to me, Jimmy's always going to get crapped on. I mean, you talked about the ball blast girls. You can ask Michelle. We've had quite a few heated arguments, her and I. Nothing personal, Michelle, if you're listening out there, but because it's like it's like she said, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's only a good quarterback because of his defense. Well, okay, well, guess what? The defense is there, and then it's he's got guys like you said, yards after the catch, and. So I think I don't think that's going to go away with a good season. Is basically my long answer. For folks who are hoping that the gray clouds will clear on Jimmy Garoppolo, and folks will stop crapping on him. I think that's just going to be his thing going forward. But hey, for fantasy, you're right though. I mean, getting a Ayuk there, having Deebo Samuel. Yes, if you can get Hurd back, I think Hurd's going to be a name that folks are going to be like, who's this guy? Where'd he come from?
Who's this 6'5" running back wide receiver hybrid?
I definitely think he's going to be. And Trent Taylor, which by the way, he said that I am his official spokesperson. He did say it. It's in my Twitter bio. So, I think he's more of a PPR third down reception kind of guy. But with all these guys together, Gary, you're right. All the potential in the world is there, and I have to look up the numbers in quarterbacks in certain years in Kyle Shanahan offenses. I don't know if he can sneak up. If that's the question, a guy who could maybe creep up there. Maybe he could. Maybe he has to prove me wrong. I don't know.
I think you also just need.
I love him.
Look at who wasn't top 12 last year and who was top 12. And all bets are out the window. You just have to find guys that you like and you like their situation, and you just kind of bet on. I mean, like Ryan Tannehill, like no one knew that. Granted, he wasn't the starter, but there are other guys that crept in. I can't even think of it. Like Daniel Jones was awesome when he was starting, and everybody, literally the laughing stock of the NFL. And look at where he is now.
There's one guy that kind of crapped out. It finished at QB 19 last year that I'll draft late and just bank on the talent. That's Baker Mayfield. The guy threw 21 interceptions last year.
Hit me so hard last year.
But if he can't,
Freddie Kitchens
with the Stefanski offense and the talent that he's got around him, if he can't do it this year, if he can't take that big step in year 3, there's going to be some serious questions about Baker Mayfield's future in Cleveland. Because he's got everything around. You've got Jarvis Landry, you got Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Odell Beckham, you've got Hooper, Njoku, you've got all these guys there. You've got a ready-made offense for you that run to set up the pass, and you've got great pass catchers. There's not. I'd say it's at the very least a top 10 situation as far as a quarterback, but. Yeah, if Mayfield can't do it this year, there's going to be some creeping doubts in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield.
If I could interject for 1 second, just because we've had this discussion on the Faceoff, and Anthony loves to shove this down my throat since I was a Brown supporter last year. They brought in Case Keenum. So what if Baker Mayfield out of the gates is atrocious? And you had said, Kevin, like if things go south this year, there's going to be some serious questions. I mean, could there be enough serious questions to maybe put Baker on a bench this year?
Maybe I would say maybe
see what they have, see what Case Keenum can do. But it could be pretty damning. I don't know. I'm a little gun shy now on Baker. He bit me hard last year.
I have to ask a question.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing about it is you're not going to have to pay a big price like you did last year to see, what he can do this year. That's the good thing about the quarterback position is that those guys are they're gonna tumble down the rankings. You could take them, with your maybe third to last round before you take your defense and kicker or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But, yeah. So.
I got to ask a question though.
Yeah.
So last year Stefanski was with the Vikings, right? He was their OC.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they ran the hell out of the ball until they actually stepped in and said, stop running the ball so much. Cousins wasn't top 10. And this year, Stefanski is joining a new team that has to learn a new system. And there's not going to be OTAs. They're going to run the hell out of the ball. It's why I love Chubb and Hunt as such good values this year, even though, Chubb's not a value. He's in the top 12 pick. Right. But that means they're just going to run. I don't see a world where Baker even scratches close to the top 10, top 12. He would have to have a Jacoby Brissett-esque type season for the entirety where he is just so efficient in the red zone that he's getting touchdowns or he's getting these long, deep bombs to Odell. I just don't see it happening. I also don't think that I think Austin Hooper is a great signing. I don't think he is a great fantasy player for this year. He was good with Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan and Baker Mayfield are not the same quarterback, not the same efficiency, none of that.
All about that Hayden Hurst.
Someone else can take him. Yes. Thank you, dude. Yes. I see Baker being someone that's dropped after week 6. I see Baker maybe being someone that could win you a championship because you pick him up off of waivers and all of a sudden he starts to do well once they get into their rhythm. But until then, they have an awesome defense. They have spent up on it. They've gotten some O-line help. They have Chubb. They have Hunt. Why would you do anything to risk this? Just keep going. And if Baker doesn't do well, I'm hoping that my pick comes up here in the next, 15 minutes or so in a dynasty, like second to last round. I'm hoping to get Keenum because we've seen him do this before for the Vikings. Like I see a world in which Baker is going to have another disappointing season, but 2021, I honestly still think he is going to be a great quarterback. I just don't think 2020 is his year.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair.
Absolutely fair. So keeping with that theme, what quarterbacks, I would say probably more outside of the top 12. Who are we out on? And I'll go with Michael to start with that. Who are we out on at quarterbacks?
This is gonna sound weird. I'm out on Deshaun Watson. It's weird to say that. I think he'll still do well for fantasy. I'm a little curious as to what's going to happen there. Bill O'Brien there, he's a wacky bird, as we all know. And I'm actually a big believer in David Johnson. And I think that they are going to run the hell out of the ball with David Johnson. This isn't to say that Deshaun Watson's going to fall off the face of the fantasy earth. That's not going to happen. I'm just saying that I would rather put my investment, if I'm taking a quarterback at that spot, I'd rather put my investment in another quarterback. So that's kind of my controversial answer. I think Deshaun Watson is a player that I'm avoiding. And again, not going to crap the bed, but I don't like what I'm going to have to spend and what I'm fearing might happen there. I just like who's going to catch pass. I mean, Darren Fells last year had 7 touchdown receptions. That was the most by a Texans tight end since they opened the doors at Reliant Stadium. You've got Will Fuller. You've got Kenny Stills. Those guys get hurt getting out of bed. Getting out of bed. They probably got hurt right now while we were talking about it. And Brandon Cooks, I love his value, by the way. I'll say that, though. I do love Brandon Cooks' value. But he's one concussion away from being out for a couple of weeks, and that's a serious thing. So to me, that's a little something that worries me a little bit. I don't know. Call me nuts, but that worries me a little bit.
How about you, Gary?
I mean, I 100% agree. I've already talked about Allen, and then Watson's the one, and I think that it normally in drafts goes, probably Wilson. It probably goes Watson, Wilson, Allen, and I'm just like, I don't get it. Randall Cobb, David Johnson, and Cooks, those are the values in that offense, and that's it. I like what Fuller could be, and all of those pieces only have standalone value for certain amounts of weeks. Watson, unless he just starts running, and he just runs so much more than he's ever done before, in which case you get that Josh Allen type season, especially from like his rookie year in the back half, where he just took off and he was a top 5 quarterback. I think he was QB2 over the back half of the season. That was in 2018.
Yeah,
that's the only way that I see him returning any value. And again, like, I don't want to bank on that. Why would I spend something there when 4 or 5 rounds later I can get Ryan, Breeze, Brady, Roethlisberger, Stafford? I mean, some of those guys are even later. It just doesn't do it for me.
I hear you. And for me, probably out on the top 4, just based on positional value. Yeah. Unless Dak or Kyler slip, but likely not. But the one guy, you've heard me say it a bunch of times, it's Aaron Rodgers. Completely out on him. He had in 2019 his worst statistical season, having played 15 games or more. No receiving help outside of Devin Funchess and an H-back in the 3rd round. And we're talking about a scheme change now where they're going to be more run heavy. Rodgers rushing floor, it's going down and down and down, where you can't really, that was kind of maybe a little bit of his hallmarks, where he'd at least get you maybe 200, 300 yards rushing and a handful of touchdowns. Now you're really kind of reaching for anything there. So Rodgers might get drafted just on name value alone, but I'm not touching the guy, at least this year.
Yeah, that's a name that worries me too. And that actually might have been the one I put in the show doc. Rodgers, I don't think Rodgers is done as a NFL quarterback. No. I still think that there is production in that arm. I just honestly don't think we're going to see it in Green Bay. And with each day that goes by, I used to yell at Anthony and say, Tom Brady's not leaving New England, and now here we go. And now I'm going, Aaron Rodgers isn't leaving Green Bay, but maybe
it's a different world.
So, yeah. And, listen, if Rodgers goes, like, you could tell me now, let's just, and I hate hypotheticals in football, but whatever. If Aaron Rodgers wound up on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we'd all be salivating. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers would be in this show, and not for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
So just, I don't think it's going to happen in Green Bay. I really believe in that whole sentiment that was a power play on draft night and that they are going to run the ball.
The world we live in now compared to 3 months ago in a fantasy football world is completely different. We have Jameis Winston as a backup, and he led the league in yardage. We have Cam Newton, who is probably one of my most owned quarterbacks right now in all my leagues across any format, is probably Cam Newton and Nick Foles. But don't worry about the Foles one. We won't talk about it. But and then we have Brady, who just moved. Like, it's crazy. The amount of people that left and moved, all of a sudden the NFL looks like an entirely different landscape for what the future can hold.
I love Cam Newton. It hurts my heart that he's not signed. It really does.
It sucks.
You think he gets signed by mid-season once they can actually maybe work him out?
Someone will pay. I think that's his biggest enemy right now is the whole coronavirus and the fact that he's not able to work out for anybody. I really truly think that's his biggest enemy. I don't think that means that there would have been, 8 to 10 teams lined up for him, but it's definitely hurt him.
The amount of
someone will get him.
The amount of talk I've heard of him potentially going to the Broncos, just in case, makes so much sense. I mean, I just like any team that you just don't know what's going on, and all of them have him on speed dial. He'll be signed before week 1, like 100%. I would put money on it right now. He will be signed, definitely.
I know we're going. We're going off on a different thing here, but I had to actually. I'm curious. I brought that up on the Faceoff. If they got Cam Newton, right? the Denver Broncos schedule starts off like this. It starts off with, let me see, after the preseason, they play versus Tennessee at home. Not an easy game.
No.
Then they go to Pittsburgh, who not going to be an easy game. Then they play Tampa Bay. Not going to be an easy game. And then it's the Jets after that. So, which might not be an easy game. If the Broncos signed to Cam Newton, and if Drew Lock comes out of the gates looking as soft as soft serve, I mean,
yeah, it would hurt me. I'm a Drew Lock guy.
So am I. I love Drew Lock. Just when I saw the beginning of that schedule, if they bring in a Cam Newton to back up, you don't want to start slow.
Let him play those first 3 games and then just, all right, now we got through those. All right, Drew, get on in there. Let's
go ahead, Drew. There you go, buddy. Yeah.
He's particularly a dynasty stash just because he'll be a starter in 2021 for me. But I don't see a crappy team really going after him unless they decide that they don't want to try and make a play for a quarterback. I think that the smart teams should try and go out and get him. I still don't understand why the Steelers didn't just say, like, why not? Like, we know we go to the playoffs if we have anything above crappy quarterback play. Go on and I said the same thing about Winston, and I actually think Cam is going to be a better fit for them just because he won't have the turnovers and he'll keep the defense be able to stay fresh and whatnot. So I don't know.
And I liked Winston more just from a salary cap perspective. I mean, I think he would have been more affordable, especially with what he ended up getting. He would have been more affordable than a potential Cam Newton. I fight tooth and nail with people on Twitter about Cam Newton. I'm hopelessly devoted. Who cares? This is it. This is me.
I would have loved to seen him on on the Chargers. I'll say that. Yeah. That was my the spot where I would have loved to see him. Now I got to sit through Tyrod Taylor. Not
Justin.
Well, eventually, but at least first few games, I would
Tyrod
say
Taylor. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a question for the both of you then. I want to know, who do you think will be your most owned quarterback come the beginning of the season across all of your leagues? Well, we'll just say redraft leagues.
I mean, Daniel Jones is a guy, but another guy I actually love Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Matthew Stafford was a guy who was on pace last year prior to his back injury. He was going to throw the ball just as much as he did in years prior. So
QB6.
I don't think that they're making any transition anytime soon. Galladay and Marvin Jones are both monsters. Hawkinson's only going to get better. We talk about on this show came up a lot, value. Who's going to drop? You're going to wait. You're going to get this guy. Matthew Stafford, you could wait for a year and you could draft Matthew Stafford, Matthew Stafford's a guy I'm going to be targeting quite a bit. That's probably a guy I would hang my hat on.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would probably say some combination of Matthew Stafford, maybe a stash of Drew Lock, Daniel Jones too. So I'm right there with you as far as I think maybe he kind of creeps up a little bit after that kind of third tier after the top 12.
Top 12. What's wrong with me? I got to get him up in there. I'm looking at my rankings up here. What's wrong with me?
Evan, I can't believe that your answer wasn't Drew Lock. I feel like you're the biggest Drew Lock.
I said Drew Lock.
You said maybe you were like Matt Stafford.
Yeah,
Dude,
you
Drew
are
Lock
like
is your boy. I feel like your flag is in his asshole.
Because just because I hate drafting 2 quarterbacks in redraft. That's my one thing. So I would say probably a healthy split between the two. But I love Stafford. He's probably my biggest value. Galladay and Marvin Jones are just criminally underrated every year.
Yep.
And then you got Hawkinson in year 2. Like Michael said, he was on a QB6 pace before, I think it was up till week 9 he was out.
And Galladay was one of 2 receivers with more than 10 touchdowns, I'm pretty sure. And he was 6th in receiving yards. I mean, Kenny Galladay, you just said it, underrated as hell.
Yep, absolutely. And then Marvin Jones, he can just pick up for free, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. What about you, Gary?
some combination of the 5 older guys, including Stafford, Ryan. Ryan's probably not going to be there. He goes earlier than the others, and so does Brady. It's probably going to be some combination of Breeze, Roth, and Stafford.
Yeah,
I actually had a guy.
I was going to say Big Ben would be there for you.
Yeah. And I mean, if I can get one of those 3 and get Jimmy just in case, like I would be super pumped with that. It would just be nice just to have. I don't know how much I'm going to start him, but I actually have in a dynasty league, someone drops Stafford, and I have to debate between who I'm going to drop because it's 1 QB, and I have Jones, now have Stafford, I have Garoppolo, and I have Cousins, and I'm debating on actually dropping 2. We'll see how like our actual rookie draft goes because that hasn't happened yet. But man, like Cousins is probably going to drop, and I could have told you prior to them letting go of Diggs, I thought they were going to try and get a wide receiver, and I was like, I think Cousins is going to be a steal next year. And now I don't know. He's just Cousins. Like he's just back to grilling his steaks in tinfoil. So,
yeah, and then we didn't even mention guys, that you could get pretty much off the waiver wire that are going to be perfect bye week guys, like a Kirk Cousins, like a Gardner Minshew, look at Joe Burrow. We haven't even mentioned Joe Burrow. And
I wanted to ask him. I want to know, Michael, like where would you have Burrow in your rankings right now? Because his ceiling just seems so high.
He is right around, where do I have him? I think I've got him around 21, 22 right now.
Do you think that you think he'll break the record for most touchdowns by a rookie quarterback?
What was that number again? What was the number again?
24, 27?
Good shot.
If it's 24, I like it. If it's 27, I wouldn't put money on it. But
I think Baker... I think Baker tied it. I don't think he broke it.
It's just so many quarterbacks enter a horrifically bad situation. And I mean, Joe Burrow is not entering a horrifically bad situation. He's really not. He has one of the best running backs in football behind him. I know people, whatever.
He holds out.
I'm a Joe Mixon guy, so we can go to blows if you will. But and then if AJ Green is anything.
Yep.
Tyler Boyd's only 25 years old. It's all there in front of him.
And T. Higgins
and John Ross.
Oh yeah, by the way,
exactly.
He enters such a good spot. Like Josh Rosen's probably like, you son of a like watching this, So I mean, maybe just 24 to me sounded good. 24, I would push chips on the table. I mean, 27 is a little scary.
That's less than 2 a game. I mean, throwing touchdowns ain't, child's play or anything, but I
just wonder, they committed a lot to Joe Mixon after week 8. He did nothing in those first few weeks. After that, they committed a lot to him, especially in the last few weeks. So I wonder if they try and commit to him more at the beginning of the year to kind of help Joe Burrow in this process. Maybe he won't come out of the gates slinging the ball.
That's why I was surprised they let Andy Dalton go. I mean, I know that was a money thing, but I mean, that would have been a perfect guy to, I don't know if Burrow would have started day one. I mean, I would say probably, but
Burrow that's a good guy to start day one.
Yeah, but that's a good guy too to have behind you, with Dalton. That's why I was kind of surprised they cut him, but I get it for the money. I have him at
what they saved $17 million. I think.
I don't know the figure offhand. I know it's double digits.
And that's your Joe Mixon money. That's your,
Yeah.
I think that even if they don't do particularly well this season, which I think as an offense they will be, I don't know if they're going to do as well as a defense, even though they, for once, made some splashes. They believe that they are prime position to actually start making some moves. So one, it is 27 passing touchdowns. I'm looking it up right now. 2, if they don't do well and they are able to get a top 10 pick and they get another anchor on their line to go with Jonah Williams, I don't care what people say. Like, their line is going to be better. Like, they didn't have Jonah Williams last year, and the dude was a freaking stud in college.
Yep.
He is going to make such a big difference. And even behind Joe Mixon, they have Gio, plus they have Travion Williams, and they have Rodney Anderson if he can ever get healthy. He is one of the guys, like, disregard all of my Jimmy talk. If you want somebody just for the pure upside, take Joe Burrow. I've heard statistics on the NFL Ringer show that said he is the only quarterback to, I think, I wish I knew the stat. He's one of the only quarterbacks to stat out better than Mahomes did in college. It was from, I know it doesn't matter because Can't figure it out. But it was just the stats that I was hearing about him. It just made me think, like, if you're going to go to a situation, really my biggest concern about that team is Zach Taylor. My biggest concern isn't the players, it's the coach. Like, I don't know if he should even be a head coach. And you're going to play against the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns.
You have a cup of coffee with Sean McVay. I told Anthony, if there's two things you want in this world to be successful without doing anything, it's you want your last name to be Kardashian, or you want to have a cup of coffee with Sean McVay. Yes. Sean McVay, by the way, who's the best at the memory game, but can't seem to find the routing number and the checking account number for Ty Gurley.
Right.
But
yeah. How do you think LaFleur got his job? He had him in his phone.
I'm just throwing stones now. I'm just having fun.
He doesn't know the routing number for Gurley because all he can remember is Jared Goff. So they're just pumping money into his bank account with their stupid ass contract, which I love. I used to post all the time on Twitter, on Facebook. If you're having a bad day, just think they gave the Rams gave Jared Goff 134 million with what 100 million guaranteed.
Good for them.
Sounds
it's
like
good for Jared.
So ridiculous.
This has now become a 49er podcast.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
But all right, so we pretty much got through most of the quarterbacks here. So I think it's as good a time as any to kind of wrap it up here. So, Michael, again, thank you for coming on here and let us know again what you're doing and just some of the information on the Podathon.
Yeah, absolute blast. Thanks for having me on, guys. You can absolutely have me on anytime. My DMs are always open. If you have Anthony Servino on, ask him about the Bengals. He'll talk to you for a half hour. You can you can cut a good part of your show out just with that alone. But the mental health Podathon, we're working day and night in that thing. July 11th. It's going to be 16 hours. And right now, if you want more information on the Hayden Hurst Family Foundation, you go to haydenhurstfoundation.com. You can also follow them at HHFoundation81. It's a great cause. It's all about helping with mental health, and with Hayden Hurst Foundation, it's about children and teens and kind of helping them. And listen, obviously that's where it starts. So, it's a good spot to start. So all the proceeds we make on that day are all going to go to that foundation. Cool. No questions asked. They're all going there. We're going to have giveaways. We're going to be giving away a DK Metcalf signed jersey. Nice. We're going to be giving away signed Hayden Hurst cards. We're going to be giving away a whole bunch of stuff. Awesome. Some other stuff I can't mention, but we've got stuff. We've got stuff going on. So, definitely tune in July 11th.
We'll be there.
Absolutely. We'll,
yes, you will, because we're going to make room for you guys. So
we'll be watching, and we'll be, I guess, potting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can't wait for that. Gary, any last words?
I just want to say thank you so much. It's really been a blast. It's always nice to have a Niners fan on here so that we can overpower Kevin. But just in general, it's awesome to actually get to talk to you one-on-one after hearing so many amazing things that you've said over the airwaves, and just I got a lot of respect in the community. So it's just awesome to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, cheers. Raheem Mostert already overpowered me enough. It's fine.
That he did.
Good Lord. But
we'll have to talk about him another time. Let's do a 49ers podcast.
We'll do that at 2 weeks because we are going to have Servino on to talk running back. So
there you go.
There we go. We'll definitely talk about him and rip my heart out yet again.
Yes.
So thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll be back next week. We're going to do a mock draft for your birthday, right, Gary?
I think so. Yeah, we'll probably. I was just thinking about maybe we'll do it live. We'll have to figure out those details.
Happy early
just
birthday!
Running through my head. Thank you. It's on Wednesday. It's actually a week from now. So
there you go.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, we'll be back here, same bad time, same bad channel. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. You're watching us on Twitter, again, thank you. And I'll post up more of those links to the Hayden Hurst Podathon and the foundation. So if you've been with us, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.